I've learned to trust small details more than stories. Fresh ballast, disturbed gravel, a gate that swings too easily for something unused. 20 miles outside Shelby, Montana, I found the kind of detail that makes you stop unpacking your tripod. I document abandoned railway infrastructure for my blog. Old depots, forgotten sidings, ghost stations along routes that haven't seen passenger service in decades. It's niche content, but the audience is passionate. Switchman's Rest came up in a forum thread. Someone mentioned trains stopping there at night, despite the siding being officially decommissioned in 1987. Local legend stuff. Perfect for a deep dive post. The place sits 20 miles outside Shelby, Montana. 3 weathered houses, a leaning water tower, and a short stretch of rails branching off the main line. I arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in October. Cold wind, empty sky, that particular silence you only get in places people have abandoned. I was setting up my camera when the door of the middle house opened. The man who stepped out was maybe 70, wearing coveralls and a railroad cap so faded I couldn't read the logo. He introduced himself as Ethan Hale, retired switchman. He'd worked this junction for 30 years before they mothballed it. "You're not the first," he said. "Folks come looking for ghost trains." I explained I was just documenting the infrastructure. He nodded slowly, then asked if I'd noticed the rails. I hadn't really looked. When I did, I saw it. Fresh oil stains, recent, running along the siding in patterns that suggested weight, friction, wheels. "Freight still comes through the man line," Ethan said, "but nothing's supposed to stop here." He invited me inside for coffee. The house was spare but tidy, railroad memorabilia on the walls. He showed me something he'd been keeping, a ledger. Not official paperwork, handwritten entries dating back 6 months, times, dates, coded notations. Unsanctioned holds, he called them. I see them sometimes, late, boxcars sitting on the siding for an hour, maybe 2, then gone by morning. I asked if he'd reported it. He looked at me like I'd said something naive. I photographed several pages of the ledger. Ethan seemed relieved someone else was seeing it. I thanked him and headed back outside to shoot the rails in better light. That's when I heard the engine. Not on the main line, closer, a low rumble that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. I turned and saw a short consist rolling onto the siding. 3 boxcars, no locomotive, just rolling, like something had given them a push. They stopped 60 feet from where I stood. 2 men climbed out of the rear car. They saw me immediately. One shouted something I didn't catch. I ran. Not toward my car, wrong direction. I ran deeper into the rail yard, past the water tower. Pure panic logic. I heard boots on gravel behind me. Hands grabbed my jacket. I was shoved hard against the side of a boxcar. The door was already open. They threw me inside and slammed it shut. Darkness. Complete. The air smelled like rust and something chemical. I pounded on the door and screamed until my throat ached. No response. I used my phone as a flashlight. The car was half full. Pallets stacked with electronics still in retail packaging. Smaller crates labeled with museum stamps. Heritage salvage. All of it stolen. I tried calling 911. No signal. Hours passed. I sat on the floor and tried to think. This was organized. The siding, the signals, the timing. Someone was using Switchman's Rest as a distribution point, forcing unscheduled stops with tampered equipment. The ghost trains were just freight crews being rerouted without knowing why. Around midnight, I heard voices outside. The door opened. Flashlight beams swept the interior. I pressed myself into the corner behind a pallet. They didn't check thoroughly, just offloaded half the cargo onto a truck and left. When the engine sounds faded, I forced the door from the inside. It wasn't locked anymore. I ran to my car and drove until I hit cell service. I posted everything. Photos of the ledger, the oil stains, the cargo. It got traction. Regional news picked it up. The railroad launched an investigation. That's when things got strange. The official report came back saying the siding at Switchman's Rest was never connected to active rail. A clerical error in historical records. The branch was removed in 1981, not 1987. My photos were dismissed as misidentified locations. I went back to verify. Ethan's house was empty, locked. A county notice on the door said the property had been condemned for 6 months. The siding was still there. The oil stains were gone. But the rails were there. I have photographs. I requested public records. The inspector who signed off on the railroad's report was named in one of the ledger entries I'd photographed. Same last name. I can't prove anything, but I keep thinking about how quickly those records changed, how thoroughly. I still document abandoned rail lines. I don't talk about Switchman's Rest much, but sometimes I check satellite images of that stretch outside Shelby. The siding's still there, and every few months when I zoom in close enough, I can see fresh tire tracks in the dirt beside it. There are towns that disappear loudly. Fires, floods, headlines. And then there are the ones that just thin out. No ceremony, no last day, just fewer porch lights every year. I'm a documentarian. I film dying towns, the ones nobody remembers until they're gone. Last spring, I drove out to Drywell, Nevada, former silver mining town. Population dropped from 2,000 to maybe 12 over 40 years. I wanted to know why people stay in places like that. I met Roy Harlan on my second day. Retired deputy, 70s, lived alone in what used to be the sheriff's station. He made coffee and told me Drywell died when the mine closed in '87. Nothing supernatural, just economics. But he said something odd as I left. Town watches you here. You'll see. That night I saw lights on the hill. Bright flashes, irregular intervals. Spotlights, maybe. I filmed them through my motel window. They'd flash twice, pause, then once more. Different pattern an hour later. Next day I hiked up. Found something I wasn't expecting. Telescopes. Homemade, bolted to wooden platforms. 6 of them, aimed at different angles toward the highway and town. And nailed to the trees, lists. Handwritten on water-stained paper, names and times. Davis, white pickup, 11:47 p.m. Moreno family, blue sedan, 2:33 a.m. Some entries were months old. Some were recent. Very recent. One name stopped me cold. Morris, gray Honda, 4:15 p.m. Motel. That was me. Yesterday's arrival time, exact. I took photos of everything and went straight back to Roy. He looked at my phone screen for a long time. Miguel, he finally said. Squatter up near the old processing plant. He'll know. We found Miguel that afternoon. 50s, sunburned, living in a gutted trailer. Roy didn't ask polite questions. Miguel told us the watchers weren't ghosts. They were real. 6, maybe 7 people. They monitored the highway, tracked who took the Drywell exit. The spotlights were signals, timing, coordination. They'd wait for cars to break down or run low on gas. The nearest station was 40 miles back. They help people, Miguel said, not meeting our eyes. Tow trucks, repairs. For a price, Roy said. Miguel nodded. Whatever you have. Roy asked why he stayed. Miguel said he tried to leave once. His truck died 2 miles out. They found him. Now he keeps quiet. I wanted to leave immediately. Roy convinced me to wait until morning, take his truck instead of my rental. Safer in daylight, he said. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the window. The lights flashed. 3 times, pause, 2 times. I filmed it, then checked the lists on my phone. I noticed something. The times weren't random. They corresponded. A flash pattern at 11:43 p.m. matched a logged arrival from 2 weeks ago. It was a schedule. A hunting schedule. At 6 a.m., I packed. Roy's truck was parked outside the station. He handed me the keys, told me to drive straight through. Don't stop. I made it 11 miles. The engine sputtered, died. I coasted to the shoulder. Middle of nowhere. No cell signal. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, trying the ignition. Then I saw dust on the road behind me. A truck approaching. I got out, started walking. The truck slowed. A man leaned out. Friendly smile. Need help? I said I was fine. Kept walking. He kept pace. Long walk to anywhere. We've got a tow in town. I didn't answer. They drove ahead, turned around, blocked the road. 2 more trucks appeared from a side road. They didn't threaten me, didn't need to. One man walked to Roy's truck, popped the hood, did something I couldn't see, then he started it, first try. Vapor lock, happens out here. They followed me back to Drywell. Didn't say where Roy was. I haven't seen him since. I'm still here. They moved me to a different room, one that doesn't face the hill. My car's in the lot, but the keys are gone. They say I can leave any time, just need to get the part. It's on order. That was 6 days ago. Yesterday, I walked up the hill again. There's a new list now, fresh paper. My name is on it. Multiple entries, different times, locations in town I've visited. The last entry was this morning. It logged the exact minute I left the motel. The time I walked up the hill isn't on there yet, but there's space below, and I can see someone down at the trees, writing. Some truckers talk about guardian angels on the highway. The voice that tells you to pull over seconds before tire blows. The instinct that saves you from a drowsy driver. I used to believe in those too. I've been driving long haul for 17 years. You learn the desert roads, the static patterns on CB radio, which rest stops to trust. Jericho Flat wasn't one of them. It's just 2 buildings and a boarded gas station off Highway 178. I'd passed it maybe 40 times without stopping, until the night I heard the voice. Please, anyone, we went off the road near mile marker 89. My wife's bleeding. Please. The transmission cut out. I was 12 miles past marker 89. I turned around. I drove slow, scanning both sides. Nothing. No skid marks, no broken fence line. I radioed back. Silence. 20 minutes searching in the dark before I gave up. 3 weeks later, different route, same stretch. Another call. Different voice, same desperation. Our car flipped. We're in a ravine. Can't climb out. I stopped again. Found nothing again. That's when I met Rosa. She ran the ham radio setup in one of those buildings at Jericho Flat, the one that still had power. Retired EMT, maybe 70, lived alone out there with her equipment and a police scanner. When I mentioned the calls, her face changed. You heard them too, she said. She'd been logging them for 2 months, always the same corridor, always just vague enough, no exact locations, no names, always when a truck was passing through late. Rosa showed me her notebook, dates, times, brief transcripts. The pattern was obvious once you saw it laid out. The calls came in clusters, always lonely stretches, always night runs. I rigged a recorder to the CB frequency last week, she said, pulling out a small device. Listen. She played it back. The voice was wrong, not quite human, too smooth on the consonants, a weird digital flattening on the vowels, synthesized, pre-recorded. Someone's baiting truckers, Rosa said quietly. We started comparing notes with other drivers on the forums. 4 reported stopping to help, 2 of their cargo stolen while searching on foot. 1 had his rig vandalized, all of them near Jericho Flat. I should have left it alone, but I kept driving that route, started watching the flat more carefully. The gas station looked abandoned, but there were tire tracks, fresh ones. Someone was using the place. Then I got another call. This time I was ready. I pulled over at Jericho, not at the supposed crash site, grabbed my phone, started recording. 2 vehicles came up the access road behind the station. They waited there, lights off, for 20 minutes. Then they turned around and left. They'd been waiting for me to stop somewhere else, somewhere isolated. I got their plates on video, sent the footage to Rosa. She ran them. One came back registered to a county vehicle, the other to a private security company. But the name on the company registration made her go quiet. That's Webb, she said. Martin Webb. He was a parole officer in Ridgecrest for 30 years. Everyone knows him. He does community outreach now. She pulled up his photo. I recognized him. I'd seen him at a truck stop diner 3 times, always chatting with drivers, friendly as hell. I told Rosa I was going to the police. She said she'd back me up with her recordings. I never made it. They caught me at a rest area 50 miles out, slashed all 18 tires, poured something on the cab and lit it. I was in the restroom when it went up, watched it burn from behind the building, called 911 on a stranger's phone. The fire inspector said it was electrical. The insurance company is still fighting me. Rosa called me 2 days later. Her voice was shaking. They came to my place, didn't touch anything, just left a note on my door. The note said, "Protecting our roads, protecting our people. Stop." I don't drive that route anymore. Rosa moved in with her daughter in Nevada. We handed everything, recordings, photos, plates, to a state investigator. He said he'd look into it. That was 4 months ago. I haven't heard back. But here's the thing that keeps me up. I saw Martin Webb last week at a rest stop near Barstow. He was talking to a younger driver, laughing, patting him on the shoulder, being helpful, being trusted. And when he walked past my table, he looked right at me, smiled, nodded, like we were old friends.
There are 3 rules for living on the Oregon coast. Don't swim during red tide, don't trust driftwood shelters, and never listen to AM radio after midnight. I should have followed that last one. I've been into radio since I was 12, not CB stuff, actual broadcasting, low-power AM, the kind you need a license for but nobody really checks anymore. Last spring, I moved to a rental outside Gull's End on the Oregon coast. Cheap, quiet, good for tinkering. The town died in the 90s when the cannery closed. Maybe 40 people still live there, most over 60. I liked the isolation. Set up my equipment in the garage and started scanning frequencies at night. That's when I found it. 1520 AM, an old local frequency, long abandoned, but someone was broadcasting. A woman's voice, flat and calm, reading names and addresses. After each list, the same lullaby played, tinny, like it was recorded off a music box. Then silence, then it would start again. I recorded it, brought it to June Carter at the County Historical Society. She went pale. "That's the WKCX frequency," she said. "It went off the air in 1997. She wouldn't say more at first, but I kept asking. Finally, she told me people in Gull's End used to hear that broadcast before neighbors disappeared. Not died, disappeared. No bodies, no evidence, just gone. I wanted to dismiss it, small town paranoia, right? Except the addresses were real, current. I checked 3 from the latest broadcast, all occupied homes in Gull's End. I drove to the old WKCX station, a rusted shack near the bluffs, windows boarded over. The door hung open. Inside, on a folding table, was a battery-powered AM transmitter, still warm, a laptop beside it, screen dark, and a spiral notebook filled with names, addresses, and 6-digit numbers. The lullaby was cued on the laptop, but woven into the audio, buried under the melody, were sequences of numbers. Prices, I realized. This wasn't a ghost story. It was an auction. Heritage items, social security numbers, deeds to properties in dying towns where nobody asks questions, and sometimes people. Vulnerable people who wouldn't be missed. I found a USB drive in the desk. Emails, encrypted, but the metadata was enough. A network. Buyers, sellers. A whistleblower who tried to report it in 1996 disappeared 3 weeks later. My neighbor's name was on the current list. 81, lives alone, no family. I called the state police, left a message. Then I did something stupid. I jammed the frequency with a looped recording of static. It worked for 2 hours. Then I heard the truck. I looked out my window. A red pickup idling in my driveway. 3 men inside. The driver had a map spread across the dashboard. My street, my house, circled in red. They didn't get out. They just sat there, watching. After 10 minutes, they left, slowly, like they wanted me to know they'd be back. I packed that night, drove to Portland, filed a report in person, gave them everything, recordings, emails, photos. 2 weeks later, they called. They'd searched the station. It was empty. No transmitter, no laptop, just dust and rust. But here's the thing. I still check that frequency every night from my new apartment 300 miles away, and sometimes I hear it. Different names now, different towns, the lullaby still playing. Last week, I heard my own address. 2 nights ago, I saw a red pickup on my street, different plates, same map on the dashboard, and tucked under the visor, a photo of my apartment taken from across the street. The driver saw me looking. He smiled and drove away. I don't sleep much anymore, but I keep the radio on, just in case, because I think I understand now. The broadcast isn't a warning. It's a catalog. And once you're on it, you don't come off.
The grant committee wanted Vanishing America, the kind you can measure with microphones and write up in clean paragraphs. I wanted something simpler, no sound at all. I came to Coldwater, West Virginia, to record silence. That's what my grant proposal said, anyway. Document the acoustic signature of a dying coal town. Capture what's left before it disappears completely. I'm an audio engineer, not a historian. But when I met Evelyn Brooks at the boarded-up depot, she told me I'd picked the wrong place to find quiet. "Town's got a memory," she said, unlocking the door. "Loud one." The depot smelled like creosote and mildew. In the back office sat the old company switchboard, a wall of jacks and cables covered in 40 years of dust. Evelyn ran the local historical society. She'd been feeding me stories all week, but this was the first time she'd brought me here. "No one's touched it since '79, she said. I set up my equipment. Good microphones pick up everything. Electrical hum, building settling, your own heartbeat if you're not careful. I was recording room tone when I heard it. A click, then another. Rhythmic, deliberate. Is there still power running to this thing? Evelyn checked. Shouldn't be. But there it was on my waveform. A pattern. Clicks and pauses, almost like Morse code. I recorded for 3 hours. When I played it back at my motel, the pattern repeated every 18 minutes. The next day, Evelyn brought me the switchboard logs, handwritten call records from the 70s, pages brittle and water-stained. I matched my recordings to the dates. The pattern appeared on 7 specific nights between 1974 and 1978. Each time, 3 to 5 men disappeared from town within a week. Not missing persons reports, just gone. Families said they'd transferred to other mines, moved away for work. Reassignments, Evelyn said quietly. That's what the company called them. I started pulling the switchboard apart. Behind the main panel, tucked in the wall cavity, was a second log, manual. The handwriting was different, cramped and hurried. Call times, extension numbers, brief notes. Lowry, shaft 7. Kovac, deep seam. Rodriguez, no return. The dates matched. Every disappearance had a logged call. I rewired a section of the switchboard, trying to understand the signal path. That's when I heard them. Voices. Faint, degraded, but unmistakably human. The old wiring had acted like a recording medium, magnetic fields frozen in corroded contacts, breath sounds, delayed echoes from sealed rooms. One voice, clearer than the rest. They're sending us to the collapse site. They know it's not stable. I took everything to Evelyn. We agreed. The town needed to hear this. The community center was packed that night. I explained the technical details, played the recordings. People shifted in their seats. The audio was poor quality, but you could hear the fear in those trapped voices. When I finished, Walter Creech stood up,
owner of Coldwater's only remaining hardware store, deacon at the Baptist church. His family had run the mine's operations office. "This is fabricated," he said calmly. "Audio can be faked." But I watched his hands. They were shaking. Others joined in. The recordings were too degraded to prove anything. I was an outsider stirring up old pain. Within 10 minutes, the room had turned. People I'd interviewed, who'd shared coffee and stories, looked right through me. I left with the tapes in my bag, planning to drive to Charleston in the morning. The state labor board needed to see this. My car wouldn't start. The mechanic I called, Evelyn's nephew, found the brake lines cut, clean, deliberate. He called the sheriff, who took a report with the enthusiasm of a man filling out a grocery list. I'm writing this from the motel. My bus leaves in 3 hours. The tapes are in a padded envelope addressed to a journalist friend in Pittsburgh. I walked it to the post office myself, watched them stamp it. But here's what keeps me awake. When I was packing up my equipment at the depot, I recorded one last sweep of the room, just habit. I didn't listen to it until tonight. At the very end, barely audible, there's a voice on the recording. Recent, clear, not trapped in old wiring. It says my full name. Then it says, "No return." I never told anyone in Coldwater my last name. My grant paperwork, my motel registration, I used M. Reed. Only my driver's license has Marcus. And I never showed that to anyone. "The depot's been locked for 40 years, Evelyn said. I think she was wrong about when they stopped using the switchboard.